Hey, I'm Dex, a product specialist with Jamstik.
And I'm Jake, I'm a product specialist at Jamstik as well. Today we're going to be talking about the Jamstik Studio MIDI guitar. The Studio MIDI guitar is a full-fledged guitar. It functions just like an electric guitar and a synth. So going over the specs of the guitar, it has a mahogany body, a maple neck, a rosewood fretboard, a C-shaped neck, 25.5-inch scale, along with 2 humbuckers, coil tap, a 3-way switch, and various I/O on the ports. So it has a USB-C for your computer and charging. It's 8-hour lithium-ion battery, as well as a TRS to MIDI out to play your favorite hardware synths. Has a 1/4 inch, just like a standard guitar, and from there we go to the hex pickup.
And the hex pickup sits right here, and it essentially just isolates each individual string and gives it its own channel of audio that then gets sent to our onboard processor, where we have our own proprietary A to D conversion that will take the signal, it will turn it from analog to digital, it will convert that digital information into MIDI and output it either via the USB cable into the computer or from the physical actual MIDI output that's on the guitar, which is actually a nice point because you can then use it with hardware synthesizers, analog gear. It opens up the flexibility of the product a lot. So inside of the Jamstik Creator software, which is the accompanying software portion to the guitar, it kind of gives you the keys to get inside of the firmware and make changes that can make it work a lot better in your workflow or just however you want to use it, because you can use it for a lot of different things. It's kind of a 2-part piece of software. It functions as a utility app, and it also functions as just a general sound design tool with presets. We're constantly making new presets, constantly sampling new instruments. The main magic here is going to be this device settings section. You can see right here that we're in MPE mode. You can also see the battery connection, but when you click this brings you into the firmware of the guitar. So you have these string sensitivity sliders. You can boost this all the way up to 10 if you're going to be playing very light, very nuanced legato playing, stuff like that. It just kind of picks up a lot more information, but you also might be a little bit more prone to artifacts. And if you're really like jamming out on it, then you might pick up some extra stuff that you might have to clean up later. Some of the extra versatility that we can get into here is these MIDI settings. So over here, the MIDI mode, we have single channel, multi-channel, and MPE. We'll start with single channel because this is a great way to interface with older pieces of equipment. This is nice to use if you're working with a synth in your DAW that is not actually MPE capable. It's not designed to receive all of that extra MIDI information. So switching it to single channel just helps it play a lot better with a lot more pieces of software and things like that. You can toggle on the pitch bend send and the string envelope send as well. You can of course change the MIDI channel. There's a lot of pieces of external gear that are only set up to receive external MIDI on specific channels. So that's a really handy thing. You can just switch it around to be on whatever channel you want it to be on. You do of course lose the polyphonic expression, which is what MPE means. So we'll jump over into MPE now because that's kind of the money maker. Our pitch bend range is set to the standard MPE range of plus or minus 48, but you can change that to whatever you want it to be. If you're using a piece of software or a piece of hardware that might use a different pitch bend range, you definitely want to match those for a cleaner playing experience. So for a long time, if you've wanted to get into production, pretty much the only option that you had was a MIDI keyboard. The MIDI keyboard plugs into everything. That's how you control most software, most instruments, things of that nature. So if you were a guitar player and you really wanted to get into making your own beats, even recording yourself, things like that, you kind of had to learn how to, play the rudiments of keyboard and things like that. That's where this can step in for a lot of guitar players. It just immediately will work right out of the box and function as like a standard MIDI keyboard would function. You can plug it in and control any piece of software that you want to with it, playing the parts that you would play on the guitar. And that's the beautiful thing about MPE, is that the guitar is a very nuanced instrument. You can do things on it that you can't necessarily do on a keyboard, like bending one note up and sustaining a different note, right? Something like that you couldn't do on a keyboard that's not MPE compatible. It would just, you would hit two notes, bend, and both of those notes would bend up together, both of those notes would come down. This allows you to do those things that you do on the guitar, like those country bend licks, those bluesy licks where you're kind of slurring notes together and bending them around. MPE is also the way that we're able to translate things like the physical decay of the guitar string as a string envelope send. So you pluck the string, you get a big spike, and as the sound of the string deteriorates, so does the input into the computer. So we can jump in right now into some of the sounds that we have in our actual sound design section of this. We just released a preset pack called Plucked and Bowed, which is 3 new sampler instruments of a mandolin, a ukulele, and a cello. We can jump into some of these. This one's called 90s in a Box. And actually, if you want to do that polyphonic bend, since we're in MPE mode. So when he does that, these 2 notes on top are staying at the same pitch. The only note that's bending is this bottom note here. Pretty cool. We can jump to another one really quick. So yeah, if you don't have any pieces of analog equipment or anything and you still just want to get into this right away, all you have to do is just get the guitar. The software comes free. There's sounds built into it. You don't even need to have a DAW to open it. Of course, it does open in a DAW, but it is a standalone app as well. So it's really just a full kit right out of the box. You're ready to start jamming, start messing with MPE stuff, start messing with just all the sounds, designing your own, whatever you want to do, really. So something that we get asked a lot from especially, obviously, guitar players is how does it tackle hammer-ons, pull-offs, those nuances that you can get. A lot of the other products that are out there that might do things like this, they will simply just kind of note off and then re-trigger a new note, and it doesn't sound very, well, it doesn't sound like a guitar, honestly. So how we kind of have it set up is that when you do a hammer-on, it will overlap the notes. And since you're not actually physically re-triggering the second note, it's going to be a much lower velocity, which will get rid of a lot of the attack on top and create like a very natural sounding hammer-on, where you get the attack of the first note and it simply dips up into the next note in a slight overlap. This is what's really cool about MPE and a guitar coming together. I mean, it's honestly like these two things were just made for each other, because a lot of the things that make a guitar so cool and so personal and emotional is the individual vibrato, the way that you can, each finger is in control of each string, the way that you do that, that's kind of your voice, that's your tone, that's what makes guitar players unique to one another, because it's the same instrument across the board, so it's the way that your finger moves, things like that. And it just comes through so nice via MPE when you can do those things. It's grabbing the vibrato of each string, whether that be you just how you're grabbing a chord, if you're bending a note up slightly on one string, that information is going to come across, which can be, you know, not forgiving, but it's also exactly what you want it to be, and it's exactly what you're playing, right? All the way down to the vibrato of each individual string, the decay of each individual note as the guitar itself physically decays, right? So yeah, we covered a bunch of the features of stuff that we've already implemented, but we have a bunch of new stuff coming down the pipeline as well. Things like device profiles, where you can switch between different settings on the firmware to work better with other pieces of gear, analog software, or even like transcription, music transcription things like Guitar Pro and stuff like that, so you can get your tablature in very quickly and efficiently. And we're always working on the algorithm to make sure that it's getting cleaner with each firmware update. We're getting less artifacts. And of course, on the sound design side of things, we're always sampling new instruments and we're making new presets, and it's just a very living, growing thing. It's a growing community, and we're just really excited to get this all out there.
Thanks for watching. You can reach us on socials at Jamstik. Visit our site. We're more than happy to answer any questions. And you can try this for yourself at Perfect Circuit.